Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Wednesday is my favorite day because it's the Avero Advisors live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Megan Seaton. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Growth here at Avero. And what that simply means is that I get to engage with an audience just like you all and share the Avero story across the country. Today, I have Mr. Robert Kornovich with me. He is our VP of Client Success. So when I bring in the business, he delivers the business. So, Robert, good morning. Thank you for joining me today.
Good morning.
If today is your first time joining the Vero Advisors live stream, please let us know where you're joining from and please ask us all the questions. We love it when you guys engage with us and ask the intriguing questions that you do. This is a great way to get free advice if you have any type of technology transformation project coming up within your organization. Also, if you are joining for the first time, Vero Advisors is an independent third-party consultant, and we specialize only in the public sector, helping our clients and future clients to modernize and become more efficient, sometimes through the use of technology, but sometimes just through business process re-engineering and assessing the overall organization to figure out ways in which you can run your organizations more efficiently. All right, that was a mouthful. Today, we are going to recap NAHRO, which is the National Authority of Housing Redevelopment Officials. We just got back from Phoenix last week. We had a great time meeting with all of the housing authorities, all the commissioners, executive directors that came by our booth. And I really just wanted to hop on and recap what we heard at the conference. We weren't able to go to the conference last year due to a hurricane. So I thought this year was very eye-opening. Some of the things we heard around AI and some of the needs that our future prospects have. So RK, go ahead and just, for our new viewers, introduce yourself, give a little background. And I know you're very passionate about housing authority. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so I'm actually based here in Phoenix, so it was nice that the conference was right here this year, and it was exciting to be able to participate both with my local communities that are represented here in the Valley of the Sun, the Phoenix area, as see some clients, some potential clients we've been talking to, and some faces that have moved from one organization to another. And you're right, housing is very near and dear to me. I've always been a public servant at heart. I'd had 20 years in state and local government. When I came to Avero, I did housing authority, project management for housing authority projects. It was fun. It was exciting. The incredible diversity of needs and wants and way we can fill those with technology was always an exciting part of that. We happened to be going through something called the pandemic when I was a project manager with housing authority. So there was really a lot of last minute scramble to provide some technology solutions that take care not only of how are you going to get your employees to be able to still show up for work, this time remotely though, which a lot of housing authorities had not had to deal with and had not figured out. But two, how are you going to engage with your landlords? Because during the pandemic, landlords were counting on that money, especially if the rest of their business was already shutting down and they only had their rent income. It was very important for the housing authorities to stay engaged with landlords,
Mm-hmm.
not only to preserve the economics of the region because of the impact housing authorities will have on there, but just because it's important for landlords to be able to transact business with the housing authority without having to go into the housing authority, especially if it was closed due to state orders or the pandemic itself. So it was always rich for a lot of really good low hanging fruit solutions, a lot of forward thinking. But what I really just enjoyed about housing is just this vision of providing a very basic, necessary human need, a service to be able to fill that, and then getting in there and seeing how rich of an economic engine that is for the region. Not only a small housing authority, but also large housing authorities as well have incredible economic impacts that a lot of time people don't see or they don't know about. So it has always been very near and dear to my heart for a lot of those reasons because it's fun, it's interesting, it's engaging. There's always solutions that need to be come up with that are forward thinking, and the same thing with HUD. HUD still puts a lot of pressure on housing authorities. They want you to be entrepreneurial. They want you to really think about what solutions you can come up with and what you can do to be able to solve a lot of these, so there doesn't have to be continuous mandates from above to tell every housing authority how to do one thing or another. So all that comes together for an incredible project, a lot of fun, really great people, public servants as well, and then seeing how it makes an impact in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and I've only been in this business for almost 5 years, but the executive directors and the commissioners and the housing authority employees are so, so, so very passionate about helping those in need and delivering those services to their constituents. And so that's just really encouraging to see. They're so, so passionate, so passionate. So, why is a conference like NAHRO important for our housing authority clients to attend? Like, what are some of the things that they might learn or might uncover at a conference like NAHRO?
Yeah, so and to go back what you said about commissioners, executive directors, they are really interesting, fun people. I mean, some people wouldn't necessarily assume that, but they really are great people. They came by and talked to us a lot. They were so engaging. You can tell that they really care about what they're doing. They take this very seriously, but they're very they're just great people to talk to. So the opportunity, I think, is that first, which is not only for us to be able to talk to folks as well, but other housing authorities, especially at the commissioner level, can engage at NARO that they otherwise would not have the time for. Or maybe they have a siloed instance, especially in some of these other C-suite level positions at housing authorities, where you feel like, especially in compliance as well, you can feel like, well, I'm the only one that is experiencing this because we're the only housing authority that has this one special program, or we're an MTW authority to be able to do things like that. So I think it's the engagement with one another. It's engagement with the vendors where they can ask all sorts of questions. Whatever ERP platform they're on, they're likely going to have that vendor at that conference as well. So for good or for
Mhm,
bad, and it's a mix, honestly, because sometimes we'll see people engage with their software vendor there, and it's not on great terms. But when you have an audience of 6 or 7 people from that software vendor there, suddenly you can get the attention maybe you're not getting regularly
mhm.
out of your ERP customer relationship. And then the sessions themselves are really engaging and interesting. So there's this perception sometimes that these conferences are, it's 3 or 4 days of people to show up and have some fun, and maybe if you learn something or you come back with some good knowledge, so be it. But no, it's the complete opposite. They take this very seriously. It's about engagement, both peer to peer, as well as the software vendors, and as well as the leadership of NARO, which is really, really good on putting these conferences on.
Yeah, I would go to bat and say they are the best. Sorry, I'm very opinionated, but NARO is a very well planned show. It is very easy to attend as a vendor, and it is very organized and put together, and help is always there. So, just a small shout out to how NARO is set up. I've really enjoyed being engaged with the leadership of that organization. Robert, what value do we see in attending a show like NARO? I know a lot of our listeners don't even know that we engage in housing, or that, the majority of our business, right, was built on helping housing authorities. So talk a little bit about the value we see in attending a conference like NARO.
The long-term value for me not only is the customer base, of course, but it's also I get to stay engaged with folks we've done projects for in the past, which is
Mhm,
important for me for a number of things. The first one being that I have to have really good references for us to be able to continue in this business, and we have a lot of great relationships with other housing authorities we've worked with in the past. I know I can list them as a reference, or if a potential client has a question, it's like, by all means, please contact this person at this housing authority. I think they're going to give you a really good, straightforward picture as to what their experience was engaging with us. So the value for me is I actually get to engage with these users, as well as if they're in a new organization. What are the struggles that are going on there? That project we did for you 3 or 4 years ago now has some additional funding that's coming up. What can we do, or how can we help you for that? And the other part of it too, which I always talk about in here, is just the free advice. Come by and come talk to me.
Mhm.
Um, and just, tell me what's on your mind, what the concern was. We had several people that said, "Hey, I just came out of this session. What do you think about that? Or what are the possibilities of our ability to address that?" But I love talking housing authorities. So it's a great way to interact with people in a somewhat not low key, but it's a rather casual environment in that people will
It is.
interact easily. And I love NAHRO leadership for the fact that they were coming by the booth and talking to us and engaging with us. They weren't just a committee that goes and meets in a small room in some private place for most of the conference. So just the engagement itself, and then really finding out what's on their minds. And of course,
Mhm.
mentioned AI was a big topic this year as well, but usually in a way that you wouldn't necessarily get in other conferences or other situations, because it's the combination of the sessions providing them some really good ideas. The way they run the sessions, which I think is very well done, the fact that folks take the vendor exhibit hall seriously. They're not just coming by to pick up swag or things like that. They actually want to talk and they want to engage. And then just the peer-to-peer discussions that you have there. We get to be a part of a lot of that. And that's just irreplaceable. And the engagement we get to have. And honestly, the respect we have as well
Right.
with our current and former clients is so important. And that's what makes these conferences useful, fun, and engaging.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I love the engagement. I love the education piece behind it, right? Because if you've never been through a technology transformation, and especially in the housing authority, I could be wrong in saying this, but they always feel like they are way more behind than anybody else in the local government space, right? Just because they don't have the resources, they don't have the time, right, to really pull themselves out of the business to really think about how to modernize or what that could even mean, right? A lot of the people who work in housing, they have trouble recruiting and retaining young employees, right? Because they are so far behind. So my point is the education piece around how we can help them, help pull them out of the mud, if you will, to help them modernize and help them automate some of these processes. Because we talk to a lot of agencies that they don't even have an online intake application, right? Everything I heard a lot about, we want to get away from paper, right? We want to digitize everything, but there's more to that conversation, right? They don't know how. How do you go about doing that? What do I need to do first, right? And so the education and educating those folks on what we do and how we can help, because I think it is confusing when they see our booth. They're like, okay, technology consultant. So what is your product, right? It's like we don't sell any product. Okay, well, who do you work with? Well, we work with everyone, but what is your issue? What is your main problem when it comes to running your organization? So just educating folks on who Avero is and what we can do and how we can work alongside them to help them become more efficient. And I do agree. I love that the NAHRO staff, the newly elected president, Sean Gilbert, shout out to you. Congratulations. He did stop by the booth several times to not only ask about Avero and what we're seeing, but what NAHRO could do better from a conference standpoint. And so I gave them a few ideas of what I thought, but they listened to me, right? And I really do think that they will take that feedback and design the conference or implement some new ideas in the years to come. Um, the sessions, I love the sessions. I love that vendors can attend the sessions without having to buy another registration, right? So one of the sessions we attended, and there were several around the use of AI, but one of the ones that I attended, there was a panel, and actually it was hosted by one of the big players in the housing authority software space. And I thought, oh no, this is going to be a sales pitch, right? It wasn't. So they hosted, and then they had, I think it was two or three executive directors from some larger housing authorities who have implemented AI. And then there was a consultant on the panel as well. And again, I was like, oh no, I don't know how this is going to go. But it was so good and so educational. So I want to dive into what we heard in the realm of AI. So, Robert, I know you were at the booth a little bit more than I was, but what were you hearing? Some of the folks coming by, and then we'll dive into what the session, some of the nuggets I got out of the session.
Yeah, so there was with AI, there was the people we were talking to at the booth. There was this mix of optimism about, hey, this is we're really starting to figure out what this is and see how this is going to work for us, and the possibilities are significant. But there's this other there's this other concern as well. I would see on faces where it's almost like panic. It's like, I this is coming.
Mhm.
I don't know what to do with it. I don't even know where to start. Is this going to cost me a lot of money? Is this going to be a retention issue for me? Because you also there's so many things in play here. So I'll start at the higher level. So again, looking at using AI, especially in housing authorities, there's three key things that you really have to figure out. And the reason is, if you don't have a lot of these particular things in place, your solutions are likely going to fail. And it's just simple as that. And worst case is you have a waste of resources, being money and people's time as well. It's
Mhm.
not as daunting as you think, but there needs to be some planning. So the first one is you really have to have a readiness assessment and understanding, where are we as an organization for adopting AI? Because it's not only just the technology piece of it, but it's also the change management aspect. It's your community engagement. It's the way you deal with public relations, because there are still some communities out there that AI is not a great term to bring to a public meeting or even talk about.
Mhm.
Not as much in housing authorities, but you have to be very careful about the perception that people have about their privacy, and how are you going to handle that, and how are you going to take that seriously. So the readiness assessment isn't necessarily, are you ready for AI or not? It's looking at, where are you on the spectrum of adoption? Are you
Yep.
going to be someone that you're going to be pretty risk averse, and so you need to have a different approach to trying out these AI tools, something that's been well proven. We don't want to be the one that tests this technology and is on the cutting edge. We want something that's actually proven and useful. And
Right.
through several degrees, getting to the other end of the spectrum, which is, hey, we're big time risk accepting, risk taking. Let's go for it, because I really want to see this stuff spun up fast. The technology leapfrogs over itself every couple of weeks or months. Let's just dive right in. First thing is to understand as to where your organization is in that perspective. Doesn't do
Mhm.
you good if you're a CIO or an executive director and you're really forward thinking on AI, and most of your staff doesn't want to touch it, doesn't want to adopt it, doesn't understand it. Your yeah, citizens you serve and house are suspicious of it for one reason or another. And if you have a governing body that's like, I don't understand any of this stuff, I don't, you can't just come and ask me for money on something that I don't see a solution on. So the readiness part of it covers a lot of just the groundwork as to, where are you as an organization and where are you going. Um, Policy is very big with me, in that if you don't develop an AI policy, to acceptable use policies within your organization, your end users, your housing specialists, and even the citizens you serve and house, and your landlords, they're going to figure it out on their own instead. So the big thing being PII, and having to control that, because housing authorities are so rich with that personal information. It's medical, it's tax information, it's legal information, it's immigration status, it's some it's the amount of information that, just with housing someone, or at least getting them through the intake process, is an incredible amount of PII that's exposed there. The example I always give is, if you have a housing specialist and someone calls and they're speaking a foreign language that the specialist doesn't know, they're going to grab their phone and fire up Translate and start
Mhm.
getting that information, so they can at least work with that person. You don't know where that information is going. It's that person's giving you a social security number, they're giving you medical information, they're giving you tax information. You have to develop policy that helps control how your employees and everyone who engages with you is going to handle that information. Otherwise, employees, and not for nefarious reasons, are going to go out and use their own AI tools to make their job easier, and their interaction with people a lot easier and a lot more streamlined. And for me, the other important piece that gets overlooked is the vision aspect.
Mhm.
And this one I'll just state simply: you need to tie your AI solution to a vision of what you're looking to do as an organization. This is the area where, hey, let's chase this down because it sounds cool and it would look really interesting and people would love it if we did this. If you don't tie it to a long-term vision that the housing authority is looking to do as part of your mission statement or as part of your special programs, in 6 months, you're going to stop using that technology and you're going to go, well, it was really interesting, but it never really actually did anything. It didn't save time. It didn't meet the goals of what we were looking to do. So really have that vision, marry that with the policy, and see where you are as an organization. And then you're able to step out and start adopting a lot of these AI tools that, again, leapfrog over themselves every couple of months. And you'll be set up going forward to be able to take advantage of every new opportunity that advancement in AI provides you, because you'll have the clear vision as to how we're going to do this, how are we going to adopt this, or be able to go, nope, that's not part of the program of what we're looking to do. We're going to pass on that. Let's focus our time and effort in these other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go back to one of the things that you said about personal information, right? We had a conversation with the commissioner at our booth, and one of the examples he said, if my employees, if we don't have AI implemented, and one of my employees are using Chat GPT on the side, and they tell Chat GPT, hey, here is Sally Joe's housing application, right? Read it and pull out all the relevant information so that I don't have to read through it, right? Or whatever the automation is.
Yeah.
Pull it out. Where does Sally Joe's, application go once it's uploaded into GPT? Who knows? What you don't know. It is that data is used to train GPT, right? And so all of a sudden, all of Sally Joe's personal information is out in the abyss, right? So the last thing that you want to do as an organization is not talk about AI, right? And I think that's where some organizations are. They're scared of it. They don't want to talk about it. But I think step one is starting to talk about it, and starting to talk about ways in which you can use it, and even training the end user on how to use it and how you want them to use it. But I think, RK, it goes back to what is the vision for your organization. One of the executive directors that was on the panel said, the first step was we met with all of our employees and we just started having a conversation about AI, about Chat GPT. And we asked them, what are your thoughts on how we should utilize this? What are your processes that could be a little bit more automated? And so there was this information session, but idea sharing, and from there it was documented and they implemented some of the practices, but they had to go back to IT and change some of their policies to ensure that whatever they did discuss was safe and secure, and it wouldn't be pumped out into the abyss, into the universe. So I think if you're not talking about AI, you need to start talking about it, because it's here and it's not going away, and it is rapidly, rapidly, rapidly evolving very quickly. Small plug. I did put a QR code in the top right-hand corner on our AI assessment and how we achieve readiness, or help organizations achieve readiness. And as RK mentioned, it's more or less an assessment of where you're at on the spectrum and how you get to the next level based on what your organizational goals are. So go ahead and download that. We have had some success with that in some housing authorities, actually. So RK, do you want to talk a little more about how we go in and the maturity model and what we've done?
Yeah, so there's another level of complexity that you're going to have to face either today or further down the road. Because again, you, your employees are already using AI. I mean, hopefully that doesn't come as a surprise to a lot of people. But your employees, the citizens you serve and house, are already using it. Your landlords are already using it. It's already there. It's first just getting a picture as to how is my organization controlling that, because there's another layer of complexity that you have to look at, which is you have to look at biases in some of the way you use AI. This tends to come more towards the reporting aspect. When you get into some like really super automation and dashboarding, you have to be very careful as to what AI platform you're using. And there's inherent biases that can be built in by the data that you feed it that you have to be careful of. A lot of just the basic interaction stuff we were just talking about, being able to translate a letter into 17 different languages, or being able to set up just a basic intake process for collecting data, or having your phone system automated through a lot of AI solutions, or your community engagement, all those sorts of things have a little bit of that. But when you really start diving into reporting and you start using AI to solution a lot of complex issues, or design a program for you for housing disabled vets, that's when you get into another area you have to be very careful of, which is the information I'm putting inside this AI platform, or the way this AI platform is set up. Is it going to cause ethical issues because there's going to be biases, intention or non intentional, that are popping into there that in your regular reporting and handling of data as a housing authority is simply not there, because you have a compliance aspect of it as well. So you have to be careful as to where you're going to marry the compliance, the ethical
Mhm.
aspect of it, and how am I going to be using some of these very skilled platforms. The best way to do that is the people doing that need to have that training, and they need to have that sort of understanding. It's a surmountable thing, but there still needs to be some education that's part of that, and that way people are handling the data, and not because there's an inherent bias causing a major issue. It's because even with some of these smaller biases, it's going to skew your data, and you're not going to get the accurate data you're thinking of. Because again, whatever you feed it, what information it has, the ability for it to share a knowledge base, which you have to be very careful with because of PII. These all
Mhm.
factor into how you can use the tools. So there's a layer of complexity that needs to be looked at as well as you get further down the road. Or say you've already adopted this and you're not even thinking along those lines of, you know what, I really need to take a look as to how this information is being fed into the system and how it's being extracted, because there is something that's coming through on this um, that is potentially going to be a problem with policy or with the public.
Absolutely. And I mean, it all goes back to, I think the best way to do this is to bring in, here's another sales pitch, guys, sorry, but to bring in a consultant, right? And do an overall strategic plan, right, for your organization. Because maybe you don't need to implement AI, or maybe you do, or maybe you don't need to upgrade your housing authority software or your ERP, or maybe you do. But bringing an expert in who is unbiased and shares an unbiased opinion can help you prioritize where you need to be, and what we can help you vision as well, and what you want your organization to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. But don't get stuck. Don't get stuck in the past and doing things the old way, because, well, as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you can retain your employees and that you can recruit younger talent into these markets. So, um, okay, I think we talked on all things AI. Is there anything else that we should hit on in terms of NAHRO and what we learned? AI was really the topic of conversation. We had a lot of vendors come to our booth to share their products, right? And how they could help our business automate some of the processes in terms of RFPs and different things. So that was eye opening as well. Anything else that I'm missing in terms of NARO?
Well, the cybersecurity aspect of it as well, because we
Yes.
help a lot of housing authorities with their cybersecurity, their basic IT ops, PII compliance, remote connectivity out in the field, you name it. We've helped them with multi-factor authentication, um, reporting issues. So PII, like we talked about, still top of mind with a lot of people, because a data breach or a data exposure it's not only you're going to get a lot of questions from the feds, you're going to get a lot of questions from your cybersecurity insurance provider, which is very important to
Mhm.
understand how these policies are evolving. And if you have the tools as an organization to be able to show your cybersecurity insurer, or your municipal risk pool, maybe that's the way, or you self-insure, is understanding where that risk is today, because things are a little bit different than they were 6 months ago. And that strategic plan that you have that's 5 years old, it's probably not serving you very well. And it doesn't have a lot of new considerations that need to be involved. So PII, cybersecurity insurance are constant questions and things that we talk about. You mentioned community engagement tools,
Mm.
along with employee retention and recruiting, which is so very important. You have an audience that expects a lot of this technology to be there already. They figured you would have most of this solved. And because most housing authorities, as well as state and local government, is actually having a retention issue, even though the job market's changed a little bit. But it's still very difficult for a lot of these organizations to offer really competitive salaries. So you have to find other ways to attract them. And being a place that is actually using modern tools, I guess would be the broad way to sum that up, and not scare someone away because they're like, "Are you kidding me? 70% of my job is a manual process that I do in an Excel spreadsheet." It's hard to get people in the door, but it's also hard to get them to stay sometimes. And you invested all that money to find them. So employee retention continues to be a big thing. And even just the pressure from HUD to look entrepreneurial, to solve a lot of process issues through technology and not just hire another position. Or you have a lot of people that are retiring fairly soon. And so now I have this
Mhm.
chunk of the workforce that I have to replace. What are ways I can fill that with technology solutions? So that, along with, of course, ERP, which housing authorities tend not to call it ERP. It's their foundational housing workflow product, and their financials and their HR piece is how they look at that. Those are constant topics, and this year as well. Funding's always a consideration. People are not too terribly concerned, but it's a weird environment right now as to how this is going to play out. So it sits in the back of their mind. If I really want to do this project, I probably should do it now because I don't know what's going to be there 2 or 3 years later. So those are the main things that we heard people talking about or we were engaging on a regular basis.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing that came up on the panel discussion, there was someone in the audience who asked a question of how do you coach your end user or your employee not to rely too heavily on like a chat GPT or language model. And so I thought that was an interesting conversation because I think that's good advice for anybody that's in the workforce right now. We can become very reliant on chat GPT, and how do we coach our employees on how to not rely so heavily on it. And one of the answers that the panelists gave was don't be a lazy chat GPTer. And what he meant by that is don't just copy and paste. Everybody can tell if it's you or if it's a robot, right? So be mindful of that. But do you have any advice to that question, RK?
No, it's a great point because you still have a number of people in housing authorities that have been there quite a while, and
Hmm.
getting close to retirement. Um, I won't point out age brackets, especially because I'm getting up there as well. But there still are a subset of users that any technology change, and especially AI, scares the heck out of them.
Yeah.
And they fear it for logical reasons, because they're like, I don't use it now. I going to be able to use this? Is there like an expectation that I have to be able to use that, and I have to have a level of
Yeah.
proficiency in order to retain my job? So I think it's the change management concept that really needs to be tackled, and we've helped organizations with that as well. You don't need to send someone off to 3-day class on using AI. You could have a 45-minute session with users that still have questions, or they're like, I've never even used it. I barely use the apps on my phone. What's a good way for me to figure out how to use this? We can show the structure as to what this all means, because of course it's incredibly complex in the details, but the
It
actual
is.
overall summary as to how AI works, and the purpose behind it can be very easily put together, in a 2 or 3 minute discussion so that they understand what it is, and most importantly what it's not, because I think that's what people fear. It's the fear of the unknown. So very very astute and very important question and concept to deal with, because it's not just hiring younger talent coming in and they're already using this and they're expecting it to be able to use it in their job. You still got people that are like, I don't know how this technology is going to affect me. You have a lot of executive directors out there who actually sort of fear
Mhm.
the technology, not because they don't like it, because they feel like I don't understand it because I don't spend every day working on it. So the change management
Right.
aspect of the messaging so important.
It is very important. A lot of people feel as though AI is going to replace their jobs, right? And our messaging is always it's not going to replace your job. It's going to make your job easier, but you better know how to use it because somebody else behind you will. So just making sure that you're staying up to date, and as RK mentioned, engaging with our content, reaching out to us, letting us know what you need in terms of training, and just having a conversation with your employees of your organization around what it can do for you, and ask them, what they need in terms of automation, and gather their insights.
No, that's
Well, we're going,
it's
oh,
a
go ahead.
yeah, that's a great point, Megan. You need to be able to look at what your current job description is, which,
Hmm.
probably has like 25 things on there, and you're only able to do 7 of them most days. Be able to look
Right.
at what your job responsibility is, figure out what you can automate and make easier through AI so you can focus on these other duties. So yeah, you're exactly right. It's not that AI is just going to come and just replace your entire job. It's going to give you the tools to be more efficient at to what you're doing so you can focus on other things. It'll help your job evolve in a lot of situations.
It really will. And one of the other things one of the panelists said is, the time is now. It is time for each of us individually to focus on how we can change and become more efficient. But it takes each of us having that mindset and being willing to change, right? Because things are evolving very rapidly. And again, you don't want to be left in the dust. Guys, if you have any more questions for us, we are very much nerds about AI, and we stay up to date on what's going on in the market. You may very soon hear about a few things that we've been working on in the AI realm. So stay tuned for that. I don't know when that is going to launch. I don't want to say too much, but I do want to provide you all with a little teaser because we have been working on a lot internally, and some new service offerings in the realm of AI. So stay tuned. Please join us every Wednesday. We go live at the same time, 10 a.m. Scan the QR code to learn more about the AI assessment and where we've done it in some local organizations across the U.S. And without further ado, thank you, Robert. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.